The distinct blue glass building is a landmark of sorts on the Delhi-Gurgaon highway, some sort of a marker for those looking for directions off the highway. As I step inside the building with its sail-shaped exterior, I see 5 floors of slick interiors, Maggi and Nescafe zones, pool corners, and recreational centers, designed in part by millennial employees. But the external calm at the Nestle India headquarters disguises the bustling pace of work happening within its premises, much like its headquarters in Vevey, built right next to the picturesque Lake Geneva. The India unit of the world's largest foods maker is doubling down on multiple fronts. It needs to.
They used to be almost like a dirt track. Today there's a 6-lane highway. And my distributor and my redistributor was actually a smaller distributor. He tells me, he says, sir, distribution बहुत अच्छा हो गया है. हम दुकान को पहुंच पाते हैं. लोग आके ले रहे हैं. Unless there is some black swan event that happens, which I hope it doesn't. This should be a reasonably clear-cut case of enhancement of the consumption platform. I really hope that we move away from atmosphere of distrust and opacity, because it is possible. I think the responsibility is also with the consumer to temper what they are consuming. So I think it's a two-way street. I would honestly certainly recommend a greater dialogue, greater transparency. Let's say if my Kit Kat is 100 calories, I'll end up consuming 30 packets of it. It's obviously going to start harming me sometime. And this is where the responsible nature of the communication and also of consumer behavior happens. Look, Ratna, I would only describe it as very pithily. Respect for competition, yes. Fear of competition, no.
Packaged foods is under high scrutiny from shareholders, health groups, consumers, and regulators. Inflation continues to hurt margins of companies, and competition has intensified that much more, from Britannia and Mondelez to ITC and Reliance. The Swiss company Nestle SA acknowledged in 2021 that over half of its mainstream products were not meeting a recognized definition of health after a Financial Times news report was published on the company. But Nestle India, with a current market cap of over 2 lakh crore rupees, has just reported decade-high numbers and double-digit growth 4 quarters in a row, beating street expectations. Over steaming cups of Nescafe and the whiff of Maggi from the cafeteria counter at the far end, I caught up with Suresh Narayanan, Chairman and Managing Director of Nestle, for the first time on the morning brief to address a gamut of issues ranging from demand and inflation to nutrition and competition. Handpicked by the Swiss foods giant to resurrect Maggi when the brand was pushed to the brink in year 2015, Suresh, who studied at Delhi School of Economics and later London Business School, times out by reading, tennis, and travel. With the foods company for over 2 decades in various management roles, he's also had short stints with Hindustan Unilever and Colgate-Palmolive in the early days of his career. The book buff who counts The Difficulty of Being Good by Gurcharan Das as one of his favorites and often cites Kabir Dohas in shareholder addresses answers every question I put across to him in characteristic frank speak. It's Thursday, May 18th. I'm your host Ratna Bhushan, and you're listening to the Corner Office Conversation with Nestle India CMD Suresh Narayanan. Thank you, Suresh, for being here with the Economic Times. Nestle has seen growth in 20 quarters out of the last 25 and just delivered the highest growth in a decade, beating street expectations. Where's this growth coming from? And are you still an urban-focused company, or is the urban landscape changing?
Look, I think that we are a more urban company is true. 80% of our sales comes from urban India. What is, however, happening is that the complexion of that urban sales is also changing now. Earlier it was dependent almost entirely on mega cities and metros. And now you're having the small towns also bringing in traction. And I think that is an important dimension of our growth. Rural markets are also responding positively, not only to entry-level packs, but also to value-added packs. So in some of our rural markets, the multi-packs, for example, of Maggi noodles, are gaining good traction, in addition to the small packs gaining penetration. So there's a dual behavior that's happening. I mean, I was recently traveling across the country in the Northeast and also in Eastern UP, and refreshingly surprised to see that brands like Kit Kat and Nescafe and Maggi are finding traction in the really smaller markets, village populations of 2,000 to 5,000. You find the brands present and you find consumers coming and picking these up. So there is as I've always believed, and we've shared this before, that there is definitely, thanks to the media revolution in the country and the digital connectivity, there is a strong surge of aspiration. And we have taken it upon ourselves to ensure that availability meets aspiration. So this is likely to be a secular trend for a while. It's not a one quarter kind of phenomenon. It is likely to continue for a while.
Being present versus being profitable. If I had to turn around the focus between entry-level packs and premium ones, what is turning around faster for you?
If you look at it, entry-level packs are certainly growing faster at this stage. But in some of the geographies, I'm seeing the upgrading to multi-packs and larger packs also happening. Also, to premiumization. I'm quite refreshingly surprised to see that some of our premium nutrition products, and indeed premium products in chocolates and confectionery, also in noodles, are finding resonance in smaller towns and in smaller markets. In a sense, smaller towns are aspirationally emulating urban India. And they're saying, well, if a guy in Delhi can have it or Mumbai can have it, and I'm sitting in a Bareilly, why should it stop me from having it? And honestly, there is economic traction in these markets. I mean, I was in East UP and traveling to Ghazipur. In the old days, I worked there in the geography many, many decades ago. They used to be almost like a dirt track. Today, there's a 6-lane highway. And my distributor, and my redistributor, was actually a smaller distributor. He tells me, he says, sir, distribution बहुत अच्छा हो गया है. हम दुकान को पहुंच पाते हैं. लोग आके ले रहे हैं. So all this, the two-way commerce on both sides, I mean, Lucknow to Varanasi is now a 4.5-hour journey. And on both sides of the road, you've got dhabas and hotels and various things coming up. All of that is opportunity for Nestle. My ready to drink, my Maggi noodles, my chocolates, coffees, all of them are finding new avenues for growth. And that's what is the encouraging part that's happening.
Absolutely. But what about the digital influence of brands and consumption? There are so many numbers out there on the surge of digital media backed by low-cost data. What do you have to say about this?
The impact of social media and digital there's a reason why India consumes more data than China. All of this is going behind the videos, and youngsters today see it. I mean, in one of the 2,000 population villages in East UP, inquired. I said, look, we have a program called Swabhiman. We have rural women entrepreneurs. It's like the self-help groups. And I was asking one of the women, I said, which brands are doing well here? And she said, sir, log Kit Kat lete hain. I was surprised, 2,000 population village. I would not even imagine that 5 years ago, hearing about Kit Kat, forget going and buying it. Today they're buying it. So there is a new wave. I think there is cause for, we can have all the headwinds and all the things about global inflation, the war and various other things. But there is a quiet transformation that's happening in consumption. And that gives me the confidence that, okay, we'll have, it will not be uniform kind of traction for the next couple of years. There will be some blips, obviously, depending on monsoons and various other things and fuel costs and all that. But there is a positive mode of aspiration that I see. We also have, thanks to the analytics and digital capabilities that we have built in, and it gives us geo-targeting like never before. I can target districts, I can target geographies for my brands, for my SKUs, all the digital capability that we didn't have some years ago. Today we have built up as a company, and that gives me greater opportunities and more efficient utilization of resources.
So, Suresh, do you expect this quiet revolution of consumption to continue its momentum?
This is likely to continue. I don't see this slowing down at all. And in fact, it goes in tandem with the improvements in the infrastructure and the other consumption patterns that is being worked through. Unless there is some black swan event that happens, which I hope it doesn't, this should be a reasonably clear-cut case of enhancement of the consumption platform. Earlier, to launch a 50 rupee chocolate, there used to be mega discussions saying, why are you launching this? Who's going to buy it? We have put out products of 170 and 200 rupees. And retailers in some geographies are saying, sir, 300-400 rupees ka kyun nahi late aap? Log maang rahe hain. So there is this quiet transformation. Probably economists can put greater finger to the pulse to see what is the underlying causes for this. But I see it in consumption.
Very interesting. So, is there a kind of FOMO for consumption which social media is feeding?
The kind of scale that is happening is also quite dramatic. I think infrastructure development, income generation, I think there is a fair amount of income as well, whether it is agricultural income or whether it is income generated by services or whatever. People are living for the moment. They're saying, you try and get a hotel accommodation in any city. You don't get. And now the summer is going to start and I'm sure guys are booked. They're all full. So there is something happening here. And people are, I think, somebody was telling me, post-COVID, the philosophy seems to have become, kal ho na ho. So might as well, enjoy and whip it in and then we see what happens.
The numbers say so too. Your last quarter earnings highlight double-digit growth led by volumes and pricing. So inflation has not been a party pooper as far as demand is concerned, right?
What's happening is that consumers are looking at value more than simply price points. There was a time when the Indian consumer, you would say that 50 paise ka difference and will be out of the market. Today, there are some packs. Like we have our Maggi small packs, for example, which has had an impact because of the change of the price point that we have done. But by and large, what has happened is people have upgraded into the larger single serve pack and are getting up the ladder in terms of multi-packs and others, where they get better value. So pure price delivery, and therefore, anybody who's coming into this food market and saying, I will sell you the cheapest product, is likely to meet with a bit of grief because the Indian consumer has evolved. He says, price comes along with a quality tag. 2 rupees ka hoga to 2 rupees ka hi quality hoga. 20 rupees ka hoga to 20 rupees ka quality hoga. They understand it. Intuitively, I think Indians are the best value seekers. And that behavior is helping us. Because then they say, ठीक है, अच्छी कंपनी है, बड़ी कंपनी है, कई सालों से रही है, मजबूत है, trustworthy है.
Staying on the subject of consumers, the centerpiece for every company, the past 1 month especially has been a rocky one for packaged foods. Bournvita came under intense scrutiny from health groups, consumers, and regulators. And as we all know, the magnitude of the controversy cascaded to the entire packaged foods sector. So I'd like your views on this, Suresh. Where does the buck stop on this entire nutrition debate?
Look, I think fundamentally, trust, transparency, and responsibility go together in any business, and in the foods business especially so. I think as a company, we've been on the journey, on the path of consistently improving the quality of our recipes and consistently improving the quality of our nutrition deliveries. We were, as you are aware, signatories to the Eat Right Healthy program of the FSSAI a couple of years ago. And since then, we have made improvements in both the sugar, salt, and saturated fat for our products. I think these are part of a larger journey of looking at products with better nutrition credentials wherever we can. For example, the Maggi noodles one, whether it is atta noodles, oat noodles, working with millet-based recipes, etc., are part of the journey. I honestly think that every organization needs to find its own meter of communication. But as transparent as you can be, you should be. We have a site called Ask Nestle. Why did we put it up? Because one of the biggest areas of fake news is nutrition. Ask Nestle gives you authentic nutrition information on recipes, on feeding, on nutrition concerns for a variety of age groups. So I really think that those of us who choose to obfuscate, I don't think it is in the interests of neither them nor the consumer. But at the same time, there needs to be a responsible dialogue between regulators, between food processors and consuming groups on nature of the products and what steps can they take over a period of time.
Some very compelling points there, Suresh. But there's this great divide between indulgent foods and healthy ones. Are you, as the world's largest packaged foods company, ready to make even your fast moving brands healthier?
Sure. I think one of the things, Ratna, and said this before, there's nothing called good nutrition and bad nutrition. It's all about balanced nutrition. You can have a finger of Kit Kat or a bowl of noodles or whatever in moderation. Everything is absolutely good so long as you take it in a balanced manner. If you land up eating 20 packets of chocolates, obviously it's going to have an impact on you. And I think the way we look at it, and even in every category, we put out what is the calorific content and what is the equivalent RDA of this. The consumer today understands that I should not be consuming more of this, and neither is the company thing. Portion control and bite-sized is in that direction to ensure that you take only one piece or two pieces, you don't wolf down a whole packet. So I think responsibility lies in being able to use science to get better ingredients and also to disseminate the correct and truthful information on what it does if consumed in large quantities. Let's say if my Kit Kat is 100 calories, I'll end up consuming 30 packets of it. It's obviously going to start harming me sometime. And this is where the responsible nature of the communication and also of consumer behavior happens. If somebody says, I've eaten so much of your products that I've become obese, the responsibility is also with the consumer to temper what they are consuming. So I think it's a two-way street. I would honestly certainly recommend a greater dialogue, greater transparency, and putting the issues on the table, saying, how far can you go? I can give you the healthiest product, which is the most unpalatable. And you will turn around and say, I'm not going to eat this product because it tastes so yuck. So this is where the question of how far can we go, how much of information, and that's for us, sites like Ask Nestle and others that we're doing, or even the My Nestle that we've got, has got us a program where you can actually seek nutrition counseling. And why is this being done? So that the doctor can advise you, okay, you're consuming this product, even the brand of this company, you don't have to consume so much, you cut it down. It is an open platform for us to have that engagement. And I really hope we move away from an atmosphere of distrust and opacity, because it is possible. I think countries have done this in the past.
Some crucial statements there. The atmosphere of distrust and opacity needs to go. Which brings me to another matter which is also taking a toll on the sector. Milk prices, which are boiling over. How much is dairy inflation a cause of concern? I read your address to shareholders where you talk about storm clouds of food inflation.
See, dairy inflation is certainly a matter of concern because there are structural issues in dairy that will take time to fix. It all began with an acceleration in the cost of production because of feed costs and other costs that made the margin delivery for the farmers, or the dairy farmers, extremely minuscule. That itself took an impact on the replenishment of herds. Post that, you had COVID. And suddenly, you had a huge dip in the demand for milk because out of home space completely vanished. At that time, of course, as Nestle, we took every drop of milk from our farmers because we are committed to them over 50, 60 years. And I talked about trust and transparency. Trust is only when the chips are down. When things are going well, everybody is trustworthy. When the chips are down is when trust really matters. So we did what we did in terms of taking all the milk. Post that, there was a revival. But then we had the lumpy skin disease last year, which has taken a serious toll on the milch herds. And each cow today is pretty expensive. And therefore, for the milk economy to revive back will take some time. It will come back. India is still the largest producer of milk, and you can be proud of it. But it is not going to be an automatic kind of replenishment that's going to happen. It will take a year or 2 years for the milk economy to start coming back. Till that time, we'll probably have the pain of relatively high prices. And as a company, we have three kinds of ways in which we try and mitigate it. One is, of course, in terms of our purchase economies to see how we are able to manage that well. Secondly is in terms of optimizing the costs in terms of particular recipes or particular parts of the portfolio where we can optimize on the usage of expensive ingredients. And only the third element is pricing. So we would ideally not like to touch it, but if it really continues to escalate beyond a point in time, it is going to be a little bit difficult to mitigate only with the first two steps. The other one is coffee at the moment. But coffee, my hope is that things will start to stabilize. It's more in sympathy with global prices. The coffee prices here are high.
Hopefully, as the year moves ahead, prices will turn benign. But let me draw your attention to millets, the other mega trend that's playing out. Food companies have been doubling down on millets, more so since the finance minister's speech back in February. But between then and now, what's the update? I hear there are various challenges companies are facing despite this unfolding, so to say, millet makeover.
No, I think the challenge of millets is the processing of millets. Availability, yes, but more than that, it is a very hardy crop. It's a very hardy crop, and therefore it's much more difficult to process. Millets were more than half the grain consumption at the point of time of independence. And then over a period of time, because the green revolution has been in rice and wheat, so the complete food basket has shifted in favor of rice and wheat. Millets have been given a short change, and millets have come down out to some 7-8% of consumption. I think to the credit of the Prime Minister, he has brought millet back on the agenda. But it is going to be more than a year for it to bounce back to what it should be. So there is a lot of attention on millets. It is seen to be a healthier grain. It is also seen to be better suited for diabetics because it's a low GI product. We are working quite a few. These are just two examples, but there's more to come as far as the millets is concerned. But yes, my sense is once the farmers start seeing an increased sustained demand for millets, they'll start to grow more millets. It also takes much less water. It's a very 25% of the water. So our water tables are drying up faster than we can count. So all that is going to help. And I think it's a great initiative to put it on the table. Now the question is to sustain this over a period of time and beyond just the year of millets.
Okay, but tell me, Suresh, what about competition? There's a lot of it playing out now. Some of your core categories like dairy and chocolates have so many more players. What is it like to have new aggressive rivals in the market for the world's largest foods company?
Look, Ratna, I will only describe it as very pithily. Respect for competition, yes. Fear of competition, no. I think we are a company that has had, in all humility, enough of heft and trust with the consumer for decades. What typically happens is when new competition comes in, it is advantageous. It tends to expand the category. It also tends to differentiate the men from the boys, who are the ones who are really capable of playing this game right. And third, it offers greater choice to the consumers. And may the best man win. And I think that provides us the internal juice to be able to say that, look, are you innovative enough? Are you sharp enough? Are you digitally savvy enough? Is your supply chain working the right way? Are you delivering the right value? All these questions get asked. So the greater the competition, the more I welcome it. I play to my strengths. So it is hardly likely that the steady hand at the wheel will suddenly start to swerve left and right. We will watch, anticipate as things happen.
Suresh, a lot of consumer companies are experimenting with the direct-to-consumer model. You too started the My Nestle platform last October. How's it working for you?
MyNestle.com at the moment is in Delhi NCR. It is being beta tested here. I think it's got off to a pretty encouraging start. I believe in the next couple of months, once we evaluate how we have done with My Nestle, decide to extend it as well. All the brands that is there in the trade and that is there in e-commerce is not put on My Nestle. Because My Nestle is expected to differentiate the product portfolio that we offer and the experience that you have of some of the services that we can offer. To me, it's not a revenue generating model. It is an equity building model for the company. So I'm not looking at competing with the Amazon. I'm not looking at competing with my own distributor. I'm not looking at competing with an Udaan or any of these. No, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that. That is not the longer term. It is a bouquet of services. bouquet of services and some specialized products. So today there are some specialized products that are put there. Tomorrow, for example, if you really launch some super premium coffees, for example, it will appear on that because the normal trade will say it looks too expensive for us. हम तो रखेंगे नहीं, हम Nescafe अच्छा है हमारे लिए, Nescafe Gold ठीक है.
Right. And finally, a quick word on quick commerce. That's pretty much the operative word within e-commerce now, isn't it?
It is the fastest growing. It's not yet, I would not say it has overtaken the regular platforms. In the last quarter for us, we grew at about 41%. More than half of that growth came from quick commerce. So quick commerce is really, what I thought would be a curiosum as far as consumers are concerned, has turned out to be a sustainable proposition. Of course, it's fiercely competitive. It seems to be in quite a lot of excitement there and the sheer convenience of getting it in a short period of time.
While analysts have called out Nestle India's numbers as impressive and sustainable, they've also cautioned that the company needs to watch out for raw material pressure and cost inflation. ICICI Securities said in a recent note that while Nestle's expansion in lower tier towns and villages and a portfolio insulated to beat overall slowdown will pave the way for future growth, margins would likely remain under pressure due to high commodity prices. Nestle has to stay the course ahead of rivals, cannot afford to take its leadership in categories like noodles for granted, and has to strike the fine balance between nutrition and taste. Adding to that, on one hand, investor expectations on portfolio transformation. On the other, there are new rivals across every category it is present in. While Maggi noodles, Kit Kat chocolates, Nescafe coffee, and Cerelac infant foods remain its core products, the foods maker may just add Chinese cuisine brand Ching's Secret to its portfolio, a story Economic Times has been tracking closely. Newer categories like pet foods and breakfast cereals are gradually gaining traction for Nestle, and newer channels like quick commerce and direct-to-consumer also need to be nurtured. Clearly, a lot is cooking in the Nestle kitchen, and we'll be watching out closely. We're signing off for now and hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. You've been listening to the Corner Office Conversation with Nestle India CMD Suresh Narayanan here on The Morning Brief, and I'm your host Ratna Bhushan. This episode was produced by Vinay Joshi. Sound editor Rajas Nayak. Executive producers Anupriya Nair, Anirban Chaudhary, and Arijit Barman. The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Do tune in to ET Play for all audio content, including The Morning Brief. You can listen to our podcast on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thank you for listening and have a nice day ahead. All external sound clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.